Today, before I begin, I want to welcome our wonderful guest, Colin White, the drummer of Joe Symes and the Loving Kind, back. He has been with Monica and myself many times, but today, before we begin, Colin, I want to kind of welcome you back from two others who have passed. Punky, the radio cat, whom I'm sure you remember, and of course our very dear friend Kerry Hall, with whom you were so close. So on their behalf, welcome.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Great to see you.
Good to be back.
Yeah. And I'm Ken Ween, folks, and with me, of course, beside Cullen, is my wonderful co-host, Monica Brinkman.
Hello, everyone.
Now, Cullen, we asked you to come on, but as we told you, we have a new format. Now, we're talking more about ideas and things. And I realized not too long ago, I started writing a new book of poetry. And one of the things that I realized that kind of firmed up in my brain was that when I was a very young child, my parents made a major error. They got me clarinet lessons. I learned to play the clarinet. But, and here's the problem, but I am by nature a percussionist. So I was learning to hear the wrong thing for my brain. When did you realize that you were a drummer?
I'd say it was about when I was about 11. Before, you know, there was always music around at the house in different ways or forms anyway. Before that, I remember, you know, obviously, you know, I'd heard, you know, some Beatles stuff. I'd hear Frank Sinatra. I'd hear people like sort of like Frankie Lane and people like that. Like, you know, my dad liked. You know, a lot of like music that came from like a lot of MGM musicals, because that was my dad's generation. So you're talking about like, those films were always on, you know, those films were always on, you know, a lot of those like kind of like, you know, early Disney films were always on, and all those songs and stuff like, you know, like stuff like Mary Poppins and all those Disney films, they were kind of always on. There's always like music around, you know what I mean? And obviously they always have fond memories. I always think back of childhood and like, you know, like mainly my dad and his side of the family and their kind of stuff and all that. But it was definitely when I was about 11 years old that I knew that I wanted to play. Basically, at the time, and he still does like them, my brother, my older brother, he was listening to a lot of the Doors at the time, and the Beatles as well. But he was listening to a lot of the Doors, because I think like a few years before then, the film with Val Kilmer came out. So this is like about 3 or 4 years after that. And basically, he had a video, a VHS of the Doors at the Hollywood Bowl from 1968, and he'd always put it on. And there was a couple of videos, but I remember that main one, you always put it on. And I remember, like, you know, kind of getting it out one day myself and watching it and kind of so good. There was something about it that kind of like kept drawing me in. And I have a Doors t-shirt on as well. And basically, coincidence. And basically, I remember watching it. I always remember, like, you know, they were on there. I remember, like, you know, looking at Jim Morrison and, you know, thinking he was a great front man. He was very, like, you know, hypnotic, and he'd draw you in, and he was cool, and I had a look that way. And there was Robbie Krieger on guitar, and he was cool. He was kind of, you know, laid back and relaxed. And then over that side, there was Ray Manzarek, kind of, you know, with his head down on the keyboards, and he was kind of, you know, kind of like really into it, like he always do. And I thought he's cool. But then I looked at this drum riser in the middle of John Densmore and kind of looked at it, went, something clicked. I went, it wasn't, you know, guitar, wasn't keyboards, wasn't being out singing and being a front man. It was seeing John Densmore on that riser and thinking, I want to do that. I will do that. Now, for a few years, I kept trying to, like, you know, pester my mum and dad to get me a drum kit. And obviously at that age, a lot of parents are kind of like, well, if we buy him a guitar or this or that, then they'll probably, you know, mess around with it or for a couple of months, and then it'll just end up in the corner of a room or something and just getting, neglected and all. So you're talking how long you're talking about 3 years. It'd come and go and come and go, but it would always kind of resurface. It'd never quite go away. It'd always resurface, and by that point, I became quite obsessed with the layouts of drum kits, and I kind of knew, what the setup was with a snare and a bass drum and toms, and I kind of knew I used to draw things very badly. I'm a terrible drawer, but I used to draw things in my little crude little way, and finally, after about 3 years. They kind of went, well, it's been a while and this isn't going away. So, what the hell? Let's see, how let's see how it goes and all that. And I got a drum kit and I started playing and all. And I learned a few basics myself and all. I learned, to kind of play because it was stuck in my head. And after that, I got a few lessons of a few people and stuff. But and then it basically it wouldn't go away. And within about a year, I started jamming with a few people. There was nothing serious at the time. It was like a friend kind of, put me in the direction of certain people. And I kind of started playing and I started getting into my early bands and stuff and going out and doing things. And it kind of went from there. And to be honest, I haven't looked back since.
You found your passion in life.
Yes, boy, is that passion.
Yeah, I found my raison d'etre. As the saying goes, yeah.
It's not easy to play drums. People think, oh yeah, you just bang on these.
For one thing, you can't be just playing one drum. A kit is a whole assemblage of instruments. You mentioned the snare and the bass, but actually it's more than that. There's usually at least one additional drum and a couple of cymbals, even the basic kit. And I'm sure by now you have grown beyond the kit your parents bought you.
Yeah, the first drum kit I actually owned was a Red Pearl Export. It wasn't a cheap kit. It was, Pearl's actually a very good make, and I had that for a couple of years, and I never gigged with it. But then I found the kit that I have now. I've only ever owned about 3 drum kits. I've only ever owned 3 drum kits. I briefly owned a Gold Sparkle Premier kit, but I kind of just used to use that in the house, and I kind of sold it after a while because I didn't need it really. Nice kit, but I didn't need it. But basically, the kit that I use now, and I've been using for the past 20 years, I think with one slight replacement, was a Silver Sparkle Ludwig kit, which is still used to this day, and it served me well. It's a beautiful kit, and Ludwig, it's the best.
I assume when you say you have the same kit, that doesn't mean the same heads. I would imagine you've gone.
No! Don't be silly. Don't be silly.
The funny thing is, I wanted to talk about this because I want parents who are listening and grandparents who are listening to the show to be thinking about what music is and what it means. So one of the things, you're a drummer. Which is a subcategory of a percussionist. And one of my favorite musicians in the world is from a little north of you. She's Scottish. Her name is Evelyn Glenny. Have you ever run into her?
No, I don't think so.
Well, she's deaf. And she's a percussionist. And I had the wonderful opportunity to hear her perform in New York City some years ago. And she never touched a drum during the performance or a cymbal. She was playing things like bricks and cinder blocks, banging things together. That is actually what percussion is the banging of things together. Drums and cymbals are a particular subcategory of these. But, hey, when you're a kid, a little kid takes out the pots and pans and sits there banging them with knives and spoons, that's percussion.
And we've all done that, I think.
We all.
Can I say something? I've never done that. I've never ever done that.
Really?
You went right to the drums, right?
No. I've got a confession to make. I used to secretly use the tubes of a vacuum cleaner.
There you go, percussion.
But they were too big. They were about this big. It was like, so I thought I need to shrink down. So, I'm bit of an embarrassing story. But you know, I think we've all got a silly, embarrassing story. So that's mine. I confess.
Now, do you ever add any things to when you're performing? Like, I know you have your basic kit that you, as you said, you've had this same kit for some time now and you love it.
Yeah.
But do you ever like add, oh, I don't know, a frame drum or bells or some other form of percussion to the kit for a particular song?
Well, in the studio, obviously, I've got a big box full of like different percussion and you know and such. Obviously in the studio when we're recording, so if something needs a tambourine or a wood block or something, then obviously I'll go in and overdub that. I'll overdub that as most people do. Obviously live at the moment. The only thing I've got apart from obviously the drums and the cymbals is a tambourine on a stand, which sometimes I've got to hit for how many songs? One song, but it's needed for that one song, and that's it.
Yeah, a tambourine is a subset of it's a kind of frame drum.
Yeah,
which of course you're putting it on a stand. Mostly frame drums are held and played with the other hand. They can be held with a stick. They go back. Well, I know in Ireland and in Scotland they go way back, and they're wonderful. I love frame drums. By the way, folks, just so you learn something. We have to learn something every day. A frame drum. The definition of a frame drum is basically it's a
bodhran.
It's
a bodhran.
Yeah, bodhran is it's narrower than it is wide and typically only has one membrane. So you're holding it on the side and hitting it typically with, you can use a stick.
A stick like that.
Yeah.
So talk about talking about you learn something new every day. Do you know how the drum kit became the drum kit?
No, not at all.
No. Well, obviously, we're all familiar with marching bands.
Mm-hmm.
Which date back, for a long time. And obviously, in a marching band, you had one person playing the bass drum, you had one person playing the snare drum, you had one or two people playing the cymbals.
Right.
Now, obviously, I think this dates back to you're talking like the very early days of ragtime. So basically, the kick drum pedal was invented. Mm-hmm. So obviously, they invented, I think it's around the turn of the 20th century, the kick drum pedal was invented, which basically made the drum kit possible. Now, basically, since one person could then play a bass drum with their foot and, a snare and whatever else with their other hands, basically it was cheaper to hire one person than 3 or 4 people. So basically, that's how the drummer the modern drummer came into existence with the invention of the bass drum pedal, allowing one person. So you have to pay one person instead of 3 or 4 other people. So that's how the drum kit was invented.
See that, Colin? You do the job of 3 or 4 people.
Yeah. But of course, when you get to symphony, classical music, where you have the timpani drums, the big kettle drums, which are tuned to notes, and you can change the tuning on, and you can have one person playing as many as 4. I've even seen 6 kettle drums by one person, and then you have like xylophones and marimbas and glockenspiels and various drums and bass drums. You can have I've seen as many as 6 percussionists at a symphony concert, which of course fills me with glee.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with orchestras, obviously, a classical orchestra, it mainly sticks to the traditional symphonic setup of obviously several different people. So obviously that's the way it works. You can have a drummer on a drum kit in an orchestra in some circumstances, but I think with a lot of symphony orchestras, they tend to stick to that more traditional, like a cymbal player or a timpani player, and so on and so on. So there are exceptions, but I think in most symphony orchestras they kind of stick to that more traditional setup, which is great as well, because obviously it's all for like film soundtracks and things like that. That's how that works. It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives a lot more employment to percussionists.
Yeah, well, in many cases with a symphony orchestra, there's about 90 people in the band, right. So it's not like a little 3, 4, 5-piece band. There's all these other people out there. Yeah,
as opposed to Joe Symes and the Loving Kind. How many of you are in your band?
3.
Right, there you go.
It's remarkable.
Your hands and both feet.
Yeah. Just the 3, and it works brilliantly. I actually, one of my, setup wise with the band, one of the great things I love is the fact that we are a great power trio, just the 3 of us, like Jimi Hendrix's band and so on. But the funny thing is, I don't know if we told you this last time, or I might have said this in conversation once, but we did a gig. I think it was in Manchester, which is obviously not far from Liverpool. And someone turned round and said we were the loudest 3-piece band he'd ever heard. And if they turned away, you'd think there was 9 people on stage because we sounded that big. And I wasn't complaining about that at all. I took that on board and went.
That's a compliment.
I would say, having listened to your music many times, I would agree. This is,
yes.
I think it is amazing how rich your music is in that way.
Sure.
Yeah, there's lots of sound. It's saturated sound. It's really good. And by the way, folks, at the end of the interview, you're going to have a chance to listen to one of Joe Symes and the Loving Kind's songs. We're really excited for you to get a chance to hear this wonderful music. Now, you mentioned a gig, and one of the things, of course, right now, as Monica's mask is reminding us, we're all in COVID quarantine. We're desperately all waiting to get the vaccines and develop the herd immunity and all those things that we're hoping are going to happen. But in the meantime, that means you fellas can't do much gig work.
No.
So we can't tell you go over to Manchester or Liverpool or wherever and go hear them live. So I thought maybe we could talk a little about where people can get some of your music now, and because that's important. We want people to download and listen to.
Well, all of our releases, the latest album, Phase 2, our first album, which is self-titled, our double A-side single, Things Get Better, I'm Going to Find Out Someday, all of our other EPs and so on. They're all available. The physical copies are sold out at the moment, but they're all still available to buy and download for, and you can get them from the shop, which is on our website, which is www.joesymes.co.uk. It's all there.
Yeah, remember, they're in case you hadn't picked up from Colin's minor accent, this is a British group. So it's .co.uk. And Symes is, by the way, spelled S-Y-M-E-S.
Yeah, we'll have a link for
Joe Symes.
the website so you can easily get there.
And you're gonna put that down below.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so, what do you think when all of this COVID ends? What do you guys think your first gig would be? Where would you like to go? Where are you missing most? What's the gig you want to do?
You know what? I can't really single any place or any venue out. I mean, the first promoter or the first person that says, "Do you want to play here?" We'll go, "Yep, yep." So it doesn't matter where the fuck. Yep, we'll play. Yep. Yeah, I don't care as long as it's on a stage somewhere, anywhere. It's because the thing is, I mean, we took the second half of 2019. We took out because we'd been gigging for 2.5 years, pretty much non-stop. And by the time we did that last gig, we were absolutely burnt out. We were completely burnt out from gig wise, and I none of us had ever felt like that before. It got to the point where we went to the gig, and we were all sitting there before we got on stage, and we were like, we don't want to do this. And that was the first time we'd ever said that. And we thought, well, hang on a minute, this isn't right. This is, like, we'll do this gig, and then what we'll do is we'll take the rest of the year off from gigging, and obviously we'll continue, with online promotion and writing and recording, and that's what we did. So basically, the beginning of 2020, we got back into the studio to start recording our new EP, which will be out later this year. And we started to confirm a few gigs. It would have been as of May. So it would have been, we would have started gigging the second half of 2020. It wouldn't have been a heavy schedule. It would have been something about maybe about a dozen gigs between May and December. And then obviously this year it would have, got a bit more busy, just to ease ourselves back into the whole gigging schedule. And basically we were, started the new EP, got a few things confirmed. And then right as that happened, all this happened. So we had to cancel all the gigs. We had to delay the studio time. We actually got back in the autumn, and we've got one more session left, which we'll be back in about April. It is, and after that, so basically, the new EP, it would have been out by now. It would have been out about August, but because of what's happened, we had to delay it. So basically, as of now, hopefully, it should be out by, I'd say, about summer this year. It's been delayed, but better late than never.
Perfect
We're
timing.
going to be needing some new music by summer, so it sounds like a good plan.
Well, as I said, it would have been out by now. It would have been out by now, but if it wasn't for all, so it's like, it's been a bit of a head wreck. But as I said, it's better late than never, and it's sounding great, and you'll love it.
Now, Colin, isn't Joe doing some artwork also?
Yeah, that's
during this time.
That's Joe's, like, kind of, that's one of his hobbies. He's done painting for a long time. I think since he was a teenager, he's done like a lot of paintings. Obviously, from what I've seen, it's mainly like musical related. So obviously he's done a lot of paintings of, say, Beatles collectively, individually. I think he's done some pictures of people like David Bowie and Jimi Hendrix and Lou Reed, and obviously I think he posted one up the other day, and obviously, as you can see, it looks very, very good. It's
excellent.
It looks absolutely fantastic, yeah. And obviously, that the person who's going to be getting that is absolutely over the moon. So yeah, that's I think that's one of his, like, sort of pastimes at the moment. Apart from obviously writing and obviously doing, like, online band work like myself. He's been doing some painting. Yeah.
Does he have that available on the website?
No, it's not on the website, because obviously that's separate. That's a kind of separate from, like, but that's more like a personal kind of like a personal passion project. I think you call it that. So I think if anyone would want to paint, they'd have to maybe, like, get in touch with him personally, and he'd be happy to do whatever was requested.
Like your personal passion, writing.
Yeah. Which unfortunately at the moment is it's nothing's been flowing at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't tend to rush things. There's ideas there, but again, I like them to flow a bit more naturally, like you all know, because obviously there's been many stories on the show in the past. Because obviously at the moment, obviously first and foremost, I am a musician. My writing is my little passion project, and obviously, but I would never ever let that get in the way of anything musical. So obviously at the moment it's all making sure, like, band priorities are well, always band priorities, and obviously just making sure that, like, once things do ease, we get back on track to where we left off, obviously with recording and then getting back to rehearsals. But obviously in the meantime it's all online. So I think, like I said before, personally it's it could be worse, but because I know a lot of people, unfortunately, have had it really, really bad recently. With obviously, like people have people's mental health has been affected, people's businesses have been affected, and obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people have died, which is horrible. But and obviously, my heart goes out to all of them. But obviously, again, speaking on behalf of myself and the band, luckily things haven't been as bad. There's been a lot of sort of delays and restrictions, but the wheels are still in motion.
Well, you guys were already into the electronic world. I mean, you had your music available for download. You were already pretty savvy at doing marketing. I mean, you've been on our show so many times, and obviously not just our show. And so you guys were prepared in a way for this change that has taken place. In that you had sophistication with some of these things. And my guess is that even during this last year, you have been adapting in ways and probably having like Zoom meetings or something like that to work together. And, and a lot of people, I think, were really just caught flat-footed. They had not a clue how to go forward. So,
it's obviously, I can't obviously speak for any other acts, unfortunately, but I mean, I can imagine, it has affected, people, but obviously because it wasn't expected, because it kind of just happened like that. It kind of took a lot of people by surprise, you know what I mean? People were like, oh, what how are we gonna? And obviously, some people have kind of, other acts have kind of, obviously have carried on with online things, and some have, maybe done a few little acoustic videos, and which I've seen around about, and I think most acts in their own way are getting by and keeping their own ball rolling. You know what I mean? Obviously, each band or each act has their own way of doing things. We have our own way of doing things, which obviously a lot of people have seen over the past few months, with obviously all the airplay and interviews and reviews that have been coming up, and there's more to come as well.
You're smart doing that.
Yeah.
Other people just cry when you're being proactive about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, what else is there to do? Just it's either kind of sit there and go, or go, well, hang on a minute, we just got to get on with these things and use, in this case, technology does have its advantage, and obviously, people can still communicate, people can still do things and get things across. So in cases like this, technology is kind of, a good thing. A good thing. I mean, obviously, nothing beats being able to do everything. Obviously, online things, gigging and recording and so on. Obviously, everything in one go. But obviously, at the moment, this can be done. So it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. Yeah,
absolutely. But Monica, I have a question for you. As we've been talking to Colin White, have you noticed the way his words flow? Have you noticed the rhythm of his speech?
Yes.
This guy, he should consider writing poetry. He's got that.
Can be dark.
I'm not a poet.
Yes, you are. What you think of poetry is probably that it has to rhyme and stuff like that. None of that. It's the rhythm of the words that matter, man. And you have got such a great rhythm to your speech.
I can write prose, as you know. I can write narrative. I can write story form. That I can do fine. Poetry is not really my forte. I like poetry, but it's not really my forte. Thanks for the compliment, but it's not in me. It's unfortunately, sorry.
I think you're underselling yourself. I'm going to try and challenge you here. Colin, try and write a poem for us. Not make one up. I mean, because you really do have the rhythm, the language rhythm, which part of why you're such a darn good drummer, right? I mean, that's what it is. Speaking of writing, I was wondering, is Joe, who does most of the songwriting, I guess, for you guys,
Yeah.
Is he working on any new material? And are you aware of how maybe COVID and all this isolation has maybe affected, if at all, what he's doing? Is his music changing, do you think? Will it?
Well, Joe's always writing. He's writing all the time, and there's tons of new material there. There's songwriting wise, one of the things that we count ourselves lucky with is that we're not short on songs, and we never have been short on songs. There's been loads of material that's been written, which obviously will be released eventually, with new releases after the EP and so on. I think I don't think. Well, I can't really speak on behalf of him on that element, but I think it's basically it's a case of Joe always kind of writes from things he hears or maybe experiences anyway. So I don't think it's anything to do with what's been going on at the time. I think it's just a case of whatever he wants to write about, he'll just write about it. So it hasn't changed. I don't think any. Joe, for when he writes songs, he just writes what he writes, and it just comes out anyway. So whether there was whether there's been a pandemic or not, it just comes out naturally anyway. It might be about something that someone he knows. It might be something he's read about or something or anything. So Joe's always written naturally anyway, and he always continues to write naturally anyway. So it's like whatever just naturally comes out.
Yeah,
will come out in a song or collection of songs.
People connect with that.
Yes, that's one of the reasons. Yeah, that's one of the reasons Joe Symes and the Loving Kind is so popular in Britain and is getting known elsewhere as well, because Joe connects what he's writing to his life, which makes it more accessible to the rest of us, and it's real music as opposed to something that.
Number one, Ken, real music, real vocals.
Yeah,
they're the real deal, and hard to find that nowadays.
Well, that's one of the main things we take pride in. There's nothing contrived about us. Well, I don't like to think it is. There's nothing contrived about us. There's nothing. It's all real. It's all about it's all genuine things, and well, we'd like to think that it's all music that is basically appeals to a very wide audience, and I think it's always been that way. I mean, obviously, we like experimenting with different things, but in the end, it's the song or it's the songs, you know what I mean? And you can sit there and and play it as a full band or with pianos or whatever. But first and foremost, if you can sit down and play those songs on an acoustic guitar on your own or on a piano on your own, the song will still come across, and that goes. It's like any Beatles song. It's like any Burt Bacharach song. It's like like that. It's like that. You can play it in whatever shape or form, even in its basic stripped down way, and it'll still come across the way it should come across.
One of my favorite albums of yours is the one that was totally acoustic.
Oh, it was a 2-part EP.
Yes.
It was. We released it as a kind of stop off point before the last album. Yeah. That was. It kind of came about kind of like randomly. That's it, because we were obviously working on the last album, phase 2 at the time, and we kind of like quickly kind of. Someone we know kind of said, do you want to maybe just do this little kind of like intimate recording? So we kind of just thought of a few things, and then we did like 1 or 2 songs that were already released, but in a stripped down form. And there was about, I think, another 2 songs that weren't on anything else that we just done strictly for that release and all that. And basically, it's an interesting release because it shows that. We can go on stage and we can, have drums, bass, and guitars and crank everything up and really play everything, full on. But then at the same time, we can do another gig and kind of strip everything down on an acoustic bass and bits of percussion and play those exact same songs, stripped down MTV Unplugged style. But it'll still have that appeal. No, there'll be no quality lost. There'll be no quality lost at all. Because I always unless you're an electronic act like a dance act, or you play a lot of electronic music. If you're in a band with like guitars or keyboards, kind of an organic band. I think if you can't play your songs acoustically, then I think there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree. If you can't find the meaning in the song acoustically, there's something missing.
And I think it was magical, that album. I mean, a lot of people might not agree with me, but when you take the bare minimum and you play, and it sounds excellent.
Well, you folks,
it's the vocals, every instrument, the timing. That is a hard thing to do.
We have to remind everybody that Monica Brinkman has a very clear bias in this world. She loves acoustic music.
Yeah. It's pure. Not many people do it well. I think someone who does. I'm so excited.
Joe and their third musician. Who was that?
Well, obviously there's me on drums and percussion. I do backing vocals as well. Obviously there's Joe Symes. He's the lead singer, plays guitar, harmonica, a little bit of keyboards, and obviously he's the principal songwriter of the band. And on bass is Alan Welsh. He plays bass.
Okay, so and these guys play well enough so that you can appreciate them on acoustic. If you're into, as Monica is, and I am to some degree, if you appreciate
I love everything they do, but that's where my heart is.
We have been fans of Joe Symes and the Loving Kind for way back. I understand that when Punky was still part of our group, that she used to like to dance to Joe Symes and the Loving Kind.
Well, did you see Charlie pop up here? She has never ever done that with any other person we've interviewed.
Oh.
Ever.
It must be our witchcraft working.
I don't know. The cats love you.
With that,
we're in tune with the cats.
With that feline endorsement, once again, folks, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Writings, Chats, and Friends. Today, our guest has been Colin White, who is the drummer, and as he mentioned, he also is the backup singer on Joe Symes and the Loving Kind, a musical group, small, just 3 guys. But boy, are they good, and you can find them. Monica has put the website connection down below in the show description. And do yourself a favor. Everybody, you deserve a present. And if there's one present you can buy yourself, is just download at least one of these albums from Joe Symes and the Loving Kind, because, gosh, they're good.
Yeah, you download one, you're going to want to download another. So
that's the way I figure. Joe, thanks so much for joining Monica and me today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And right now, we're going to give you an example of their wonderful music. So, folks, here you go. Take care, Colin.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See the almost close.